We're delayed just a couple of minutes. My assistant went up to get some paperwork out of my office. She'll be right back. Good afternoon. Today is Wednesday, March 6, 2024. I hereby call the Election and Campaign Finance Subcommittee to order. Madam Secretary, please take the roll.
Representative Burkhart, Representative Doggett, Representative Helton Haynes, Representative Miller, Representative Moon, Representative Warner, Representative Crawford, Chairman Rudd.
Thank you. I'm here.
Chairman Rudd, you have a quorum.
Do any of the members have any personal orders before we begin? All right, seeing none. Today we have 8 bills on the calendar. And we'll turn it over and get going here. First up is HB 2013 by Chairman Whitson. We have a motion and a second. Please, let's see, you have any amendments?
No, Mr. Chairman.
All right, tell us about your bill, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee. This legislation is to ensure the voting public, citizens who pay for our primary and general elections, are entitled to vote for their candidate in a county primary election. This will prevent a select few from determining in a possible manipulation of local caucus selection process from picking their chosen favorite to run as their party candidate. I've seen this firsthand, how a county party can dismiss qualified party candidates from running for office to ensure their select candidate is the only party candidate listed on a ballot. This is wrong. Political parties will continue to establish their standards for party affiliation, but this legislation will ensure that the voting public, by primary election process, can pick between all qualified party candidates and choose who will advance to the general election. The requirement for a primary election over a caucus selection process was upheld by the Tennessee Supreme Court over 50 years ago. The only exception was for caucus selection was for minor parties. This legislation will also allow small counties that often do not hold a primary election, or a primary for county offices, to request a private act with the General Assembly to continue that practice if necessary. With that, Mr. Chairman, I renew my motion.
Have questions on the bill? Mr. Warner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Representative Whitson. This would not allow the local county, say on school board elections or the county commission, to have a caucus. It would demand a primary, correct?
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
Yes, it would require a primary unless there was a private act approved by the General Assembly saying otherwise.
Okay, because if I'm not mistaken, it's the party's choice in that county right now to determine whether they do a caucus or a primary. Is that correct?
Yes.
That is my understanding. If a caucus can, they can do that to put their candidate on the ballot for the primary if they hold one.
One follow-up.
Go follow up.
So what this would do, this would change it up. It would make it, they would have to come before the General Assembly if they wanted to change back and go to the caucus, correct?
Go ahead, Chairman.
Correct. And for instance, let's say there's 5 candidates qualified to run as say in our party as Republicans, and they meet the standard, they cannot be challenged off. They would be on the primary ballot.
Thank you, sir.
Chairman Doggett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative down yonder, he asked a couple of the questions that I was going to ask you, but is it not within the state party that authority be granted to the local parties to make that determination whether or not they wanted to have a county primary or do a caucus?
Go ahead, Chairman.
My understanding, Chairman Doggett, is that a county party can decide whether, again, under current rules, they can have a caucus selection for their candidate and put that candidate on the primary ballot. And so this would say you have to have, if you're qualified, you have to have a primary election to be on the ballot.
Chairman Doggett.
Thank you. In your bill, it would require, if they wanted to continue to have a caucus, they would have to come before the General Assembly and get a private act. Is that correct?
That's, Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
Yes, that's my understanding. And I've been told there are small counties that do not have primary elections with a low population count. And normally they just have election for their county offices. And they could come to their representative can come and continue that process with a private act.
Chairman Doggett.
Who would do that private act? Is it the county government that would do it or the political party?
It would be the county government would have to pass a resolution requesting that. The county commission, I'm sorry, the county commission.
Well, in the event the county commission did not like a particular party, they could adversely deny them that opportunity by refusing to vote to send that private act up here, that resolution to the General Assembly.
It would be my understanding, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Yeah, they would still have there will still be a primary election if they elect, there would be a caucus selection or a primary election. It'd be up to the county commission.
Chairman Doggett.
Right. That's what I'm, excuse me, that's what I'm saying. If the county commission did not want this particular party to have a caucus, then they could deny that resolution when they could vote it down, and that would eliminate that party's opportunity to exercise the rights that the state party has given them to choose whether or not they do the caucus or the primary. If they want to do the caucus, then they could be denied by a county commission. If I'm understanding this correctly.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
My understanding, though, there will still be an election in the general where those candidates could compete for office. Again, that would reinforce local control.
Go ahead.
I've got several counties that want to continue to caucus. It saves the county, in my county, about $30,000 a year from the election. They'll have the caucus. There may only be a handful of candidates that caucus and run, but under this, the county commission could deny them that opportunity to have that caucus, and then they would have to do the primary, or they would have to show up on the general, on the ballot. I think it would be better suited to have this approach go through the state party. If the state executive committee was to bring a resolution or ask or change their bylaws as to how things go, I think that's the more appropriate avenue to go, instead of having the General Assembly dictate inside the party's business, because the caucus that is a part of the party's business.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
And I understand your concerns, but again, that comes from the county commission, which represents the will of the local people. And again, people will still be on the ballot for the general election. And also primaries are paid for by the public, not by the parties.
Chairman.
But if you only have one party that does a primary election, we had an election one time several years ago, and there was 3 people that were on that ballot for that county primary. And so after that, they said, we'll just caucus, because it was perfectly permitted through the state bylaws for that particular party that they could do a caucus. And that's what they did, is they did the caucus, and they got much more turnout that way when they did the caucus. But again, it goes back to a county commission could say, we're not going to allow this particular party. It might be maybe rivals that they don't want them because they have a certain designation behind their name appearing on the ballot, whereas someone else wants to remain independent, which is perfectly fine. I just think it's a dangerous, it could turn into a dangerous game that we play when you put that much power into the hands of a county commission to make a determination whether or not a political party, which is independent of the commission, whether or not they could have their own caucus, if that's what they choose to do, because the state party says you can have a caucus or a primary. It's up to each local county political party to make that determination what they want to do.
Chairman?
And again, I respect your opinion when you say it could be dangerous, though. To me, it's more dangerous that a select few determine who's on the ballot and they put people off the ballot rather than have the will of the people vote for that person.
Chairman?
Thank you.
I guess point of privilege. I think I'm not sure. Is there anybody else on the committee that used to be on the state executive committee of either party? Well, I was on for 18 years, and actually the state party is the one that controls the county party calling a local caucus. They have to get their permission and obey by the state constitution rules. So it's not totally up to the county. It's up to the state. Forgetting any constitutional matters that the U.S. Supreme Court's ruled on us not interfering in county party nomination process, but I don't think the state's ever been challenged on it, and it's really never become an issue yet. But there's one thing that does pop up, Mr. Chairman, that you may not be aware of, and being that I was on the state executive committee, it can, if there's a glitch or if they miss a deadline to call a primary or something, they can have a caucus, an emergency caucus, and nominate someone. Or sometimes, especially in smaller counties, it could very well be that no candidate popped up that's going to run for a countywide office or a local office or any office, and they get a really good credible candidate at the last minute, and they use the caucus process to nominate them because they've missed the deadline for filing. And also, if we're out of session, we can't very well pass a special act if something suddenly pops up to address that. So the state party needs that flexibility. And like I said, we're also interfering in their process, but I think it would complicate the party functioning. And even though some counties may have had an issue or a problem, I think most counties, this is operated pretty efficiently. But with that, Mr. Chairman, that's just my personal comments. I think we're treading on dangerous ground and going to interfere with the county party's ability to call this. But again, it's the state party that's really controlling it, not the counties, because they grant them the authority and have to approve it. Thank you. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I defer to your wisdom as your service on the state executive committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any further questions? Seeing none, everybody, no objections to voting on the bill. We are voting on HB 2013 by Chairman Whitson. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. No. Bill fails. Thank you. All right, let's move on to the next item of business. Item number 2, HB 2770 by Chairman Lafferty, and he is at the podium. Let's see, do we have we have an amendment? We have a motion and a second on the bill. Do we have an amendment?
Yes, sir, we do.
What amendment number do you have, sir?
I have 014953.
That's what we have. You want to have a motion on the amendment? Have a second on the amendment? Do you want to place the amendment on the bill?
Please.
All those, if there are any objections, we'll vote on placing the amendment on the bill. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Amendment is on the bill. Tell us about your amended bill, sir.
All right. It's similar to what you heard before. We are just trying to get the municipality elections moved to the even years to coincide with the August, November elections beginning in 2026. A couple of reasons for doing this. One, it should save our municipalities some money because they're not administering so many elections. And two, it should help with voter turnout. I live in Knoxville, city of Knoxville elections this past year. The numbers were, but one, we don't have a ton of adults that are registered to vote anyway. And then of those adults, We only had about 18% turn out to vote this last time in this last city election. We spent a lot of money for that. So I'm just simply trying to get everything aligned, make it a little easier, maybe get a little bit more turnout and save a little bit of money in the process. With that, I'll
So-
take any questions.
So we're not occasionally unintentionally violating current state law. Yours would make it so we would not intentionally be conflicting or violating state law.
I would not want to violate any state laws. No, sir.
We have Chairman Moon ask the question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to the sponsor. Your amendment makes this permissive. I was originally against this legislation, but now that the locals have a chance to ask for this, I can support the legislation. I believe that's correct, isn't it? They do it by ordinance.
I'm reading that it shall change.
Well, I go back to my original stance here. Thank you, sir.
All right. Sorry, Chairman.
Any further questions? Chairman Doggett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Representative. We had a chance to speak briefly about it a couple weeks ago. Got one town in my district that this would probably affect. They have their elections in the spring, and it's something they've been doing for a number of years. I spoke with my city mayor and city manager there just yesterday, and again this morning. They expressed that this is, there was options currently in the law that would allow them to align with other elections, but that's kind of the tradition and that they've had, and they wanted to maintain it. With this amendment that your bill is amended, would it affect them in their elections?
I may need to defer to Mr. Goins.
We
On
have
that.
Coordinator of Elections Goins here prepared to speak if he's need to be. Do we need to have the coordinator come up?
Bring him up.
Well, with no objections, we'll go out of session and hear from the coordinator.
What's a Wednesday without here? He's here. Let the record reflect that
Mark Goins, Coordinator of Elections for the great state of Tennessee, with lack of sleep from yesterday. Anyway, the question was, would it apply? He is the sponsor of the legislation is correct. It would mandate that if a city has not moved their elections to August or November, they would have to do so. A current member who has a term, their term could be extended, but no more than 2 years. And that is actually, so there is, I forget who asked the question about their local municipality. It said there's an option where they can do that now. The current language says that if they do it, they cannot. That mirrors the language. You can't go beyond 2 years term. So that's the standard language if someone moves their election to August or November. But this would mandate.
Oh, Chairman Doggett.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And so that's, I just needed clarification that it would cause my one town that's been doing this for numerous years to have to move their elections. We would be forcing them to move them. They would not continue to have that option any longer to do that on their own.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way I read the language. It says shall change by ordinance to date of municipal. It doesn't say may change. It says shall change.
Chairman.
Thank you. And in the event that the ordinance fails, a partner here raised that point just a moment ago. If the ordinance was to fail, the city council said, no, we want to keep it the way it is, and they fail by ordinance. What is any kind of ramifications for that or a procedure in that case?
I would assume I'm defendant in a lawsuit. I mean, I think there'd probably be some lawsuit because we would be telling them that state law would mandate that they do so. They would say no. And so at some point there'd be litigation, I would imagine.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none, unless Mr. Chairman Lafferty has anything for the witness.
I not at this time.
All right, we'll go back to
Except for
thank you,
thank you.
coordinator. We'll go back into session. It's ball's back in your court, Chairman.
I am not looking to disturb anybody's current practices. Unfortunately, as with many things that we do around here, there's a kind of a shotgun spray with the law. Things get touched you don't intend to. This would help save some money. I hope that it would help save Chairman Doggett's community some money. I understand traditions run deep and they're tough to change, but I would appreciate your consideration on the bill.
Chairman, let's see. Todd Warner, excuse me, Representative Warner. I'm looking at my notes. I was confused.
That's all right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move previous question.
We have previous question. That ends debate. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. No's carried. Bill fails.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, committee.
Yeah. Let's see here. We have the distinguished gentleman from the mid-state, HB 2443 by Representative Capley. We have a motion and a second on the bill. Let's see, I believe you do not have an amendment, do you?
No, sir, Mr.
amendments.
Chairman.
Tell us about your bill, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. This bill is pretty simple. It requires that a person seeking to qualify for the election to the office of county clerk be a qualified voter of the county and a resident of that county for 1 year prior to the date of the qualifying deadline.
Any questions on the bill? Chairman Doggett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I see you're wearing your scarf in here today. It's a good thing. Because it's so chilly outside now. No,
Are you feeling okay, Chairman Doggett?
I am. I'm feeling. I tried to make a joke, and my wife tells me not to, but she's not here. She's probably going to lock the doors when I come home this evening.
I forgot to announce at the beginning of session that hazing is prohibited.
That's right. That's right. Orders of the day. Yes,
Go
sir.
ahead, Chairman.
No, you would think that this would have already been in statute in times past. Can you give us an example, without, why we would need to make this change now?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think just as an overall point of good practice, if someone's going to move, run for office, a countywide office, then I think it would be good practice that individual lives in that county for at least a year and is registered to vote in that county. As far as good practice going in the state, we've done a lot of things in the past that have been good practice, and as far as going toward elections, and I think this is another step in the right direction of something that we can do to continue that.
All right. Any other questions?
Question on the bill.
We have a question on the bill. Any objections? Seeing no objections, we're voting on the bill. HB 2443. All those in favor say aye. No. Opposed? Nay. Bill goes on to full local. Oh, there he is. Next up is item number 4, HB 2501 by Representative Jones. Do you have any amendments?
No, Mr. Chairman.
All right, no, excuse me, we have a motion and a second. We have a motion and a second. Tell us about your bill, sir.
Thank you. And I'm just requesting a roll call vote, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Thank you. Good afternoon, committee. This bill comes at an important point before the consequential 2024 general election. We just had Super Tuesday on yesterday, where massive amount of money will be spent on political advertising to get out the vote. Efforts by both parties, which should not be affected by the spread of AI-generated misinformation. Multiple media reports have shared that publicly available AI generators are capable of creating images that would spread massive disinformation to voters and erode faith in our elections. This has already affected both leading candidates for president and will become a persistent issue this election cycle as AI continues to be used in campaign ads and digital marketing by candidates. Trump was targeted by false AI images last month in a political ad showing him on Epstein's plane. This was launched before the Iowa caucus and clearly meant to affect voting behavior. Joe Biden, too, was targeted by AI-generated robocalls using his voice in the New Hampshire primary, encouraging voters to save their votes for November. This was a movement at suppressing voter turnout and in closer races could affect results. The confluence of unregulated AI and unregulated social media worries many. particularly since several of the largest social media platforms have cut back their trust and safety teams responsible for overseeing their response to disinformation and misinformation, hate speech, and other harmful content. This bill will be the first step in regulating the wild west of AI and ensure that voters are given accurate information and disclosures necessary to stop the spread of misinformation. This has had bipartisan support in states like California, Texas, Michigan, Washington, have all passed laws to confront this issue, ranging from disclosures to outright bans. This is an area of bipartisan compromise, not just to ensure accuracy for voters, but to be leaders in regulating big tech and securing our elections from harmful disinformation. I just would like to add as well, on Monday, we passed bipartisan legislation as a body saying that we want to protect musicians from misinformation of their voices being misappropriated. And this is just extending that protection we passed Monday for musicians to our elections, which is very critical at a time where this technology is being proliferated across our nation. And it can impact all of us as well in our local races. And so we'd be happy to answer any questions. And with that, I submit the bill.
Any questions on the bill? Chairman Doggett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Who would be the complainant on this? Let's just say there was a video, commercial that went out and it used the voice of a president or whoever, and who would be the one that would actually be the complainant on that?
Yeah. So this.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This would be adding to the statute under existing election law, so it would follow the same process as any other ethical violation of election law through the Department of Elections, but also criminal, possible penalties in criminally. And so this is just adding to Tennessee Code annotated Title II, Section 219-120, and it's simply adding that a political communication covered by this section that was produced by or includes synthetic media must disclose the use of such synthetic media. The disclosure on printed or digital political communications, including but not limited to brochures, flyers, posters, mailings, or internet advertising, must be printed or typed in an appropriate legible form to read as follows. This political communication was created with the assistance of artificial intelligence. So this is simply adding to a list of already ethics violations in elections and misinformation, potentially criminal actions in elections. We're just adding to that as a potential addition to that list that's already existing.
Chairman Doggett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So like the other night, the Elvis Act that we talked about that used the AI technology, that would have, using that name, image, likeness, voice, that would have an effect on the estate of someone or someone that was still living, that it would have maybe a monetary effect on them. If, let's say, someone used Donald Trump's voice and saying that I endorse this candidate or what have you, how would one come about and saying this is in violation of your law? Would it have to come from the man they impersonated? Would have to say, no, I never said that. I did not offer this endorsement. What does that process look like with this language?
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you for the question. I think this is the process anytime a candidate, for example, say a candidate sent out information that was against the ethics of our rules, like you sent out something without disclosing who it was from. It would follow the same type of reporting process, either from the person who was impacting or by a resident of the district or the person who is themselves being impersonated. So it can originate from both, from my understanding of the original legislation that this is amending. And so it's just simply adding on to that process. So say we sent out a mailer saying, targeting one of the a legislator and didn't disclose who it was coming from. There would be a reporting process for that and a way to hold whoever spent that money and sent that mailer out responsible. It's the same type of thought process behind this legislation.
Chairman Doggett.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think my question ends up really boiling down to how do we know if it's not disclosed, if it violates what you're proposing, how does someone know for sure that is AI technology? How do they know that it's not legitimate? In the event of like a robocall that went out and you answer the phone and you may suspect that this is AI, but it doesn't say that. But how do you know that it really isn't legit at that point? That's where I'm trying to find that piece in your language to say, how do you how do you determine whether or not it's real or AI in that? And then who is maybe the victim in this? Because if someone was making robocalls using your voice in support of a candidate when you clearly did not authorize them to use that, I would think that you would feel as if you were a victim in that, but also there would be a violation. And so I'm trying to figure out who really makes that complaint, because if someone says, I believe that they used your voice inappropriately, I don't believe you were the one that made that voice, and you complain to the Bureau of Campaign Finance or Ethics, and they say, well, how do we know for sure unless we go track him down? And if you use nationally known figures, you may not ever get that phone call to find out if that was actually them. Or so that's what I'm trying to figure out, how this piece, how it all works into the puzzle there.
Representative Jones.
Thank you. So the first part of this legislation is simply to have prior disclosure. And so just like we disclose, it's up to, we trust the candidate to put who it's, paid for by and who their treasurer is. This is that same type of thing. We're trusting them to put that this, if they're using AI, because some candidates, I've seen candidates recently, I'm using some AI images, even in a good sense, just trying to show people with them at an event or something. And so it's to just say this image was generated using artificial intelligence to show people. And so it'll be self-reporting, but there is also, once this is codified in law, it'll also give people a standing to hold them accountable if people are using AI misintentionally, sending, a call, with your voice on it and saying, you endorse you endorse Biden, something like that. You can go and report it and say, this, number one, this is in violation because they haven't put this disclosure on it. And so this is a misrepresentation of me. This is just trying to restore some integrity in our elections, and try at least have an initial step toward this. We're in a wild west right now. We have nothing. And so this technology, this is one of the first major elections where we're seeing AI being used. And so it's just trying to say that we want a simple disclosure on these things so we can kind of engage how many candidates are using AI. We can understand the proliferation of this technology, because a lot of particularly seniors, a lot of senior citizens I've talked to in my district can't tell the difference between AI and what is not AI. And so we want to help people to understand, like, this is not a real image. This is something that was created artificially, and start getting that in people's minds that this is a possibility. Because right now people don't even know it's a possibility on the large scale. People don't understand that some of my students who I teach at a university can make AI images. They can make AI video and calls. This is the first year we're talking really about AI in this body. And I think this is just a step toward adding some initial disclosure to kind of gauge how much AI is being used, and to kind of start that initial process of getting candidates in the process of saying, okay, if I'm going to use AI, I have to be transparent about it. This is a transparency bill, number one. That's what this is about.
Chairman Doggett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I agree. Would you consider putting in some type of verification piece? Because it would put a large burden on a campaign if someone, maybe your opponent, says that radio ad they did was made by AI technology. That TV ad, this image that they've produced on this mailer we know that's not him. How do you prove? Someone makes a complaint. Now the burden's on you as a candidate to try to disprove those claims that they've made. So would you consider putting in some type of verification piece in this so that, you don't have a lot of frivolous accusations out there that you utilized AI when you clearly may not have, or maybe you got somebody to make the phone call for you, or even if a candidate, maybe let's say if Donald Trump was to say, yes, I'll have my people send over a robocall thing, a recording for you to send out and play. They may have used AI to do it because they didn't want to sit down and take the time to say it out, but they were able to piece that together and use it. I've heard of folks may have done similar things like that in the past. So that's what I'm just curious about, maybe a verification piece in there.
Representative.
I'll be open to a verification if you would like to amend it and, to push this forward to the full committee. I think what we're seeing, Representative Doggett, is we're just trying to add this into the list of already offenses for elections. So say somebody said a member, a lawmaker, a candidate was in a polling place beyond the boundary. This is like the same type of thing where somebody can say, okay, we see a candidate, they're beyond the boundary with their campaign material, or someone's wearing a campaign shirt in a polling place. It's just the same type of integrity that we're expecting for such basic acts. And so this is simply disclosing, saying, candidates, let us be honest. If we're going to use AI, just disclose. It's a simple disclosure to say that, hoping the onus is on the candidate to self-report and say, okay, I'm using AI in this call. I'm just like when at least when I did ads when I was running, you have to say, this ad is paid for by State Representative Jones for District 52, my treasurer's name. I had to say that at the end of the commercial, And so the same thing with AI, just saying that this AI, this political communication was created with the assistance of artificial intelligence, is simply adding that phrase either orally or written to include that as well. Again, to just increase transparency around this concern of AI. But if you want a verification process, I think that will add some complication to this. But if that's what you think is needed, because what we're not seeing, I don't think we're seeing a lot of people saying this is false AI. I think we're seeing the opposite problem, to be quite honest, Representative Dog. We're seeing people who see videos and see content and think it's real. They polled people in Iowa when they saw the picture of Trump on the plane with Epstein. Some people thought it was real. When people got a call from Joe Biden saying stay home and wait till November to vote, people thought it was real. So we don't really see people saying, oh, this, the opposite. They're thinking these things are real. And that's what we're trying to just create some type of safety from as we head to November, because we're going to see a lot more of this technology as we head forward toward the general election.
Chairman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I agree with you. And when you brought the bill through criminal about the AI stuff, I used the example of the Tiger Woods thing where he hit a putt and then walked over before the ball ever went in the hole. And it was clearly a fake, and it was a good one because I believed it for a minute. But, at the same time, there might be, I agree with you in what you're wanting to do. I think there ought to be some piece in there somewhere for, in the event that it's clearly, if I use a voice of someone that I know is not AI, but then I get accused of using AI technology because there's no way that somebody would lend their voice or lend their image or, be shaking my hand or giving me a hug or whatever, the case may be. There ought to be something for to stop the frivolous complaints that could arise, I think.
I think I've got one ahead of you. Chairman Crawford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My colleague down on the other end of the diocese there brought up frivolous lawsuits. And I guess my question would be, who is going to be the one determining whether something is AI or not? Is that going to fall back on the responsibility of the election commission, the election commissioner? Who is going to make the determination of if it's AI or not? If, people start making frivolous complaints as such, who's going to be determining whether it was AI or was not?
Are you asking the legal or Chairman Doggett?
I was asking Chairman Doggett, but if legal has the answer, I'd be glad to answer it. Listen.
No objections. We'll go out of session. Listen to legal. We're out of session.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Josh Houston, Legal Services. So this provision would be added to 2-19-120, which has a criminal penalty attached to it. So it'd be a violation of this section as a Class C misdemeanor. So it would be my understanding that it would be the district attorney who would be doing the investigation once a report is made of someone receiving something that they suspected as AI that was not disclosed as being AI.
Would that be kind of the same equivalent as it's a misdemeanor or a felony to vote in another person's primary? It's up to the DA to enforce it, and if they don't, it just didn't get enforced.
That'd be correct.
Okay. Question, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Crawford. Oh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The example given by the sponsor was, if it was like a boundary situation, at least you have something in front of you that can be determined if somebody was across that or not. With this stuff, it's so legitimate and so real that people believe. I just want to make sure whoever it is, district attorney or whoever, that we have somebody that has the training and the schooling to be able to determine that. So that was the reason for the question.
Chairman Doggett, you had a question to legal?
I do have a legal question. Yes, sir. Thank you. I believe it's currently a Class C misdemeanor as well if you fail to put that on your sign paid for by so-and-so, that's not something that the Bureau actually, or campaign finance, I don't believe that's what they look for, but that would be a complaint that was made on that would go directly to the district attorney. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other question on legal? Oh, you didn't have a question. Okay, well, let's go back into session. We can resume debate. We're back in session. Yes,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the concerns I'm hearing is that, we don't want frivolous complaints. And what we're seeing is like any other type of false reporting, that would be the preemption to try and stop these false complaints. Because if you false report to the DA and are continually trying to make false reports, that is a crime. When you're trying to falsely accuse someone under oath or using false evidence, that is a crime already. And so we, Chairman Doggett and I have legislation that he supported about AI and explicit images, and it's the same type of thing. Showing that people are using these AI to create explicit images of people. It's the same type of standard of proof to show like this is not legitimately. The case we used in committee was Taylor Swift. They made explicit images of Taylor Swift that was not actually her. That we're trying to rein in this proliferation of explicit images. Representative Littleton has a bill about child pornography and AI. It's the same standard. If people are making AI, which you can prove is wrong, there are certain people can show distortions and show how something is not really genuinely a person. But it takes a trained eye. It takes somebody who knows as well. But I think most people can understand, like the images that I use as an example with Trump and Epstein or Biden telling people not to vote. We know that's AI. So it would be a crime for people to put that out and misinform and misrepresent themselves to voters with the intention of trying to sway an election. That's what we're trying to buffer from, is to rein that in and be proactive. I don't, at least from my understanding, in all the states that have passed this, we have not seen frivolous complaints. But what we have seen is more compliance with the law, where people are properly disclosing the use of artificial intelligence. And these are states as diverse as Texas to California that have passed these laws. And they have not seen frivolous complaints. They've seen better compliance, and they've seen protections against misinformation. That's what we're trying to do in Tennessee.
Chairman Moon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Isn't the same thing happening with Photoshop? Someone that's really good with Photoshop can put you inside a boundary, can put a shirt on saying, Rep Jones, re-elect Rep Jones inside the boundary. Are we going to require that we'll have a list of things that are generated when we start getting into disclosures? I respect what you're trying to do, and I understand that, but there are so many pieces that are mailed, so many things that are put on social media that are generated that are computer generated. So that's just my take. Thank you, sir.
Representative Jones.
Thank you for the question, Representative Moon. AI is Photoshop on steroids. I mean, in high school, I think Representative Dog is close to my age. People could use Photoshop. I'm trying to be kind. I'm just kidding. People, you can use Photoshop and you can make a image that cut somebody out and be with your favorite celebrity. You can kind of see this as fake. AI takes it a step further. You can make fake voices where it's somebody's voice. You can say, Representative Doggett can say, "Come join me at a drag show," and then you think it's him. And so it's like you can make it sound like them. You can make it look like them in a video. Doing things that Photoshop. There's certain signs that this is Photoshop. But AI is so comprehensive and so detailed that it's hard for people to tell the difference. And the fact that it can be audio and video takes it even a step further. This is the scary thing about this. I mean, what we saw on Monday, you can make a voice sound like a musician. I mean, think about the detone technology to do that, to make it sound like Elvis came back to life, and released a new song. That's not the same as Photoshop. And that's what we're trying to rein in. There is a differentiation between Photoshop and artificial intelligence, or synthetic media, as they call it.
Representative, there's one thing, a question I have. Was your bill apply, like, let's say that I'm running for re-election, and I'm going to the studio to record a video, TV commercial for me, and I'm hoarse that day, and I have AI reproduce my voice in my own commercial. Would I have to put the disclaimer?
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm not the attorney for here, but under my understanding, no, that's not the intention behind the law. Using artificial intelligence and synthetic media. I think it's about misrepresenting others mainly and not like, enhancing your voice or anything like that. It's from my understanding. In either way, all this is doing is adding a disclosure. So if you were to use, to make it so that you sound like Elvis in your ad or you can sing like Elvis, you just put a disclosure that this was edited using artificial intelligence on that.
I would have concern, like if I'm not even mentioning my opponent and I'm just recording my own commercial and I use AI just to reproduce me or clean me up. Maybe I was in a hunting accident over the weekend. I fell down a cliff while hiking and I've scarred up my face and AI is going to clean it up under your bill. I think I would have to put that disclaimer on there, wouldn't it? It may make people think, since it's my commercial, that it's a phony commercial, that, on a print ad, you can do Photoshop, but on a video, you'd almost have to use AI technology. So I'm just wanting to make sure it doesn't hamper people in their own commercial. I can understand using AI if they're trying to defame or attack another opponent. I just wanted to make sure that it wouldn't cover the actual person that's their own ad. Yes, sir.
And the other thing I want to add to that, because I think, thank you for the question. The DA would still have the common sense, type of decision making, whether they're going to prosecute that. If you're just saying, oh, I'm cleaning myself up, I don't think any reasonable DA would prosecute anybody saying if you are just trying to hide a scar or something. I don't think that, again, that's not the intention of this bill, and it would still be up to prosecutorial discretion. If someone to report you to say, that doesn't look like Representative Rudd, something was changed about this video, they'll bring it to the DA, and it would still be under the discretion of the DA to enforce this provision of requiring a simple disclosure for transparency.
Representative Burkhart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too have a lot of concerns here, but I think it's more the unknown than probably the known. When is this, what's the date for this to take effect?
Yes, go ahead.
This bill will take effect upon becoming law, so time for this election season.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any further questions? Seeing none, we'll be voting on HB 2501 by Representative John. Excuse me. Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. You asked for a roll call. Madam Secretary, take the roll call. We're voting on HB 2501 by Jones. All those in favor say aye, opposed nay.
Representative Burkhart? Representative Doggett? Representative Helton Haynes? Representative Miller? Representative Moon? Representative Warner?
Aye.
Chairman Crawford?
No.
Okay. Chairman Rudd?
No.
Two and one. That's incorrect, isn't it?
3-3-1.
Yeah, I did that incorrectly.
3-3-1.
So feelings for all, the majority.
Okay, where did it go? I mean, who do we have? Burkhart, Crawford. Rudd. That's my favorite. Sorry. Representative Rudd, the vote is 3 aye, 3 no, 1 present not voting.
Bill fails for lack of a majority. It stays in committee.
Thank you. Conveniently, the only Democrat left, so.
Let's see. And next, let's see.
Sorry, go ahead, Chair.
I was going to say next is item number 5, HB 2499 by Jones.
Can I roll the bill a week since?
No. Keep in mind, this is be your third row, so it would automatically go to special calendar.
All right. Yeah, it's the last.
It's the last
Okay.
calendar, so.
Yeah, then we'll go forward. Yeah.
All right, so you wish to roll it?
No, we'll keep it.
Okay. You're proceeding on today. All right. Let's see, you have no amendments? Let's see, to have a motion? Motion. Have a second? second on the bill. Tell us about your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm also requesting a roll call vote.
All right.
Sorry, that vote was close last. Mr. Chair, the state of Tennessee every year pays billions to private companies that have contracts to perform government work. And in some cases, those companies then make sizable campaign contributions directly to the politicians who influence whether these agreements are approved. To the public, this looks like pay-to-play politics. In an era where ethical governance is paramount, banning political donations from entities being paid with tax dollars would strengthen the public's trust in government by rooting out corruption, as well as the appearance of corruption. House Bill 2499 would prohibit any entity with an active state contract or grant award from making campaign donations to PACs and candidates in state elections. The prohibition would only be effective for the duration of the contractual obligation to taxpayers. This anti-corruption legislation is a bold step toward ensuring that our government decisions are not swayed by financial contributions, but rather guided by the needs and concerns of the people we serve. It is about avoiding even the appearance of impropriety in awarding state contracts. This bill is a critical step toward ensuring that our democracy is not sold off to the highest bidder. The practice of political giving by government contractors and grant winners is widespread across industries. Companies and their business-driven PACs spanning private prisons, telecommunications, healthcare, prison healthcare, road and building construction, insurance, K-12 education services, information technology, delivery services, water infrastructure, banking, and more have donated tens of millions of dollars to candidate campaigns and PACs after taking billions of public tax dollars through government contracts and grants. If enacted, this legislation would prohibit a state or local contractor or grant award winner from directly or indirectly promising or making a campaign contribution to a political campaign committee, candidate, or person for political office during the period of their contract execution or award of a grant through the completion of the contract or grant period. Very simply put, Mr. Chair and committee, this is to remove this is to restore public trust in government. People should not look at the donors of politicians and wonder if they're making the right decisions for Tennesseans. A really great example is Core Civic. Core Civic has received $233 million a year in state contracts in the state budget. And they've made, in response, they've doled out $220,000 annually in lobbying and donations directly to candidates. This is despite the fact that they have consistently failed to live up to their contractual agreements and been so terrible at meeting their obligations. A report was recently released by the comptroller detailing how Core Civic has failed to live up to its contractual agreements and was even fined for their failures. So this is about trying to root out legalized, transparent corruption. And this is really just about trying to ensure transparency for our taxpayers. This legislation was passed in Hawaii and was upheld by the federal courts as constitutional already. And it's just something that I believe that we can work across the aisle to let our constituents and taxpayers know that we're here to serve them. And again, this would only take effect during the duration of their contract. So if Core Civic has a contract with the state of Tennessee, during the time that they're getting that money from the state government, they cannot make campaign contributions. But once that contract ends, if they want to make campaign contributions, they can. It's just for the duration of their contracts with state government. And there's multiple industries that are connected to this as well, including for-profit hospitals, AT&T, health insurance companies that manage TennCare, like Blue Cross Blue Shield, tongue twister, and multiple corporations. And so this is, again, to restore trust in our government.
Any questions on the bill? Representative Warner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Representative Jones, for the bill. I'm going to give you an example here, and you tell me yes or no, or if I'm right or wrong. I'm a grading and utilities contractor. Let's say I'm doing work right now under state law. I cannot actually bid as a prime contractor for the state, but let's say I'm working under Jones Brothers, and I'm doing water line on a big project. Would this still allow me, if I wanted to contribute it to say my friend Representative Doggett's campaign, would this allow me to contribute to his campaign?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. This would only be for the primary company that holds the contract. So if you're not the prime signer onto that contract, then it would not apply to you. This would apply explicitly to the prime contractual signer for any type of contract with the state. And so you said right now you're not allowed to have that, I guess, because you're a legislator. And so it wouldn't prohibit you from under that scenario. But if you were the prime sponsor, like if you were Core Civic's PAC, or if you were the CEO of Core Civic, then you would not be able to. But if you're just somebody who is secondary on that tier, it wouldn't be impacted by this legislation. Thank you.
Any other questions on the bill? Chairman Crawford.
Thank you. I think it was a couple of years ago, we did campaign finance reform. And I think we've already got stuff in place that would monitor this and put those protections for the citizens in there. Just curious if that was still the case.
You want to go out of session for?
I didn't know if you could answer that, Mr.
What was
Chairman.
your exact question again?
That we already have this in place to protect the citizens from bad actors through the campaign reform.
Well, we have, I'm not sure. I know we put protections in place, whether they go as far as this bill, I'm not sure. We'd have to ask, I don't know if Coordinator of Elections, he wouldn't do this. He's not over ethics. So you're not aware of any?
I just didn't know if you need the answer.
No. Yes, Chairman Doggett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will say there are contribution limits that entities or individuals can contribute to a candidate. What can sponsor? What can you do? What can someone do that receives these contributions? What can they do with that money?
Go ahead.
If someone receives political contribution, what can they do with the political contribution money?
Yes.
They can use it to fund campaigns. And so again, this is what we call pay to play politics, where you take money from Core Civic and then vote for Core Civic to get a state contract for prisons. It just gives the appearance of impropriety. And so what it looks like is that, okay, as Core Civic said, we'll keep donating to certain people who we know will support our contract. And we'll keep the contract as long as we're donating to them. So it keeps people, it just gives that appearance. And what we're trying to remove is even the appearance of impropriety. And so, most of us up here, hopefully, are getting most of our campaign contributions from our constituents or people in our districts or regular people, and not people who are doing business with the state. And what this looks like is that people are paying to get a contract. That's what the appearance looks like. And that's a perception to taxpayers. And this is, again, across the spectrum, you have this idea of trying to root out corruption and the appearance of corruption in government across the political spectrum, from the far right to the far left. People are trying to rein this in, and in the middle to have more ethics in our government. And so what people can do is that it makes it seem like, politicians, and under this example, politicians are going cheaper, it looks like, because you're getting a $233 million contract and you're only doling out $200,000 in campaign contributions. It looks like, our electeds are cheap dates, that's what it looks like. And we're just trying to root that out and restore confidence in our government.
Representative Burkhart.
Thank you. Give me an example of when this body votes on a contract.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Yeah. So I don't know if we have to get recognized in your committee, so just trying to follow the quorum. We vote on contracts all the time. We voted to put in the budget to give Core Civic $233 million, and in the new budget, it's going to increase their pay by $7 million. So I would bring it up to $230 million this year in the budget for Core Civic to keep their contract to oversee our state prisons, even though they've been failing to meet their contractual obligations. So we consistently are negotiating contracts and voting in the budget to fund contracts and keep these agreements. In fact, we have an agreement with Core Civic that we have to keep our prisons at a certain occupancy rate. This is an obligation that we have in our contract with the Core Civic as a state. And so what we're trying to do is to say that any type of contractual agreement should not have the influence of money or campaign contributions. Just like we don't allow outright bribery, and not saying that this is, no one is taking a bribe, but it gives the perception that, you're going to vote for my contract as long as I'm funding your campaign. This year before session began, Core Civic gave $84,000 to lawmakers through their leadership PACs. A lot of that went to leadership. Obviously, I don't know if we all got it, but a lot of the leadership PACs got money from the core civic PAC at the beginning of session when everyone was rushing to get their money in before we can't take campaign contributions. This just happened this year. And so this is trying to rein that in and to kind of create some transparency. And again, this would only take place for the duration of a contract. Once a contract is expired, they can give whatever they want to anybody. But as long as they're doing business with the state of Tennessee, as long as they're in a contractual agreement, they should not be able to make campaign contributions for that time.
Chairman Doggett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was going to follow up to the question I said earlier when I asked what contributions are used for. For one, my vote has never been for sale. Ever since I've been here, I do receive contributions from entities and organizations from all walk of life. And I like to think it's because they either like me or like my politics or, I don't know why, but all I can do is buy signs and radio ads and occasionally a billboard with them. Never once has anyone brought me a check before session started and then come back and say, you remember that campaign contribution I gave you? I need your vote on that. That has never happened since I've been here. And I would bet $1 to a donut nobody on this dais has been approached that same way either, because that is clearly illegal. And so, I personally, I don't think the bill is needed. I've never voted on a contract for any entity. I do recognize that there are certain groups that the state has contracted through the executive branch. They have contracted with different entities to perhaps run a prison. I'm not aware if there are other entities out there that have placed bids to do that. But just using that example, but, to say to give in all transparency, I think we have a very transparent system right now in place that we have. It's almost as if we're alluding to that we can be bought. And this is a way to stop that. And I disagree with that because my vote has never been for sale.
Chairman, may I respond?
Yes.
Thank you. Colleagues, during session, we as lawmakers are not allowed to take campaign contributions while we're in session. We cannot take money to avoid the appearance of impropriety. No one is saying you were taking money, so that's why we passed it, but it was to avoid the appearance of impropriety so that people can't say, you voted on something and right away give you a donation. This is establishing that same type of standard to a contractual agreement. So like when we are in this position, when we are voting on legislation, when we are doing the people's business, money should have no influence on us. When a contractor is accepting state money for the duration of their contract, there should be a pause on the money that they give so it does not look like a quid pro quo. It should not look like a exchange, even if it gives the appearance of that. And so, this is not a judgment on anybody in this body on their ethical behavior, but we have ethics rules in place for a reason. We have ethics in place to just make sure that the public has trust in our government. Otherwise, under that standard, we don't need any ethics type of regulations. If everyone is just, we know that everyone's doing the right thing, but we have ethics rules in place for a reason. It's to make sure that the public trusts us, that they know their government is doing their work, and that there are no questions in their mind. And so, people up here, and I've talked to people who are both Republican and Democrat, who are lacking trust in government on all levels. Oh, okay. I was like, there's a speaker here. It got shut off. I'm just kidding. Sorry, y'all. But people at all, people across political spectrum have concerns about the trust of government. And so this is simply, people see lobbyists and they're skeptical. Let's be honest, both sides of the aisle, people our constituents are skeptical. And so we just want people to have trust in their government. We want to make sure that people are not paying to play in politics. And this is just trying to remove that appearance of impropriety and to increase some transparency. I believe that each of us is up here trying to make this government reflect our constituents. We fight like hell sometimes, but we want the best for our constituents. We want people to feel like this is their house. That's what we call this. We don't want it to look like the lobbyist house. You know, all these suits up here, that's not what the Capitol should look like. It should be our constituents coming up like we saw today, students, grandmothers, people dressed regularly. That's what it should look like. And this is trying to make sure that people feel like they are welcome here and they don't have to question who is funding elections, you know, because it will make a difference. If you are a candidate who can get all this money from somebody who is, you know, a state contractor from corporations, and you have another grassroots person just trying to get donations from their constituents, putting their pennies together, it will make a difference in your election. So what you can do with that money is a lot. You can send out mailers targeting people, as we've seen. You can send out, you know, radio ads. You can really, you know, money in politics, we know is been devastating. And so this is just a step toward trying to rein that in and making sure that people are accountable to the folks who send them down here. That's all it is about.
Chairman Moon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And it's occurred to me that when a company doesn't send a contribution, a political action committee, and it could be the employees of that company that feel quite a bit different maybe than management. And their voice, the employees' voice is being heard. And that's where I have a problem. And also the term indirectly. Indirectly is so subjective that you could make a case on almost anything. So two things. I don't believe corporations actually make the donation. Political action committees make those, and sometimes they are made up of employees. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
May I respond?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for that example, Representative Moon. Most of these corporations have PACs. And the reason why it says even indirectly is because we don't want people to wash money and say, this is not coming directly from the CEO, but it's coming through a PAC, you know, a tentacle of the same thing. And so that's the indirectly of it. But most corporations, this would, you know, this would apply to those who have the contractual agreement. So if there was a union for prison guards, they would not be impacted by this. I want to make sure that's clear. This is who has the contractual agreement with the state of Tennessee. So the guards at the prisons owned by CoreCivic would not be prohibited from donating. The CEO, Damon Henninger, would be. The corporate PAC would be prohibited. So I want to make sure that we're clear about that. It's not about stopping employees or hindering just folks who are working in a certain place. It's whoever has a contractual agreement with the state of Tennessee for the duration of their contract. That's who this would rein in.
All right. Any questions? Chairman Crawford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to remind the committee, there was a statement made earlier about our elections and stuff, but for 2 years running, we have been the #1 state in election integrity. And I know we have a lot of people from the Secretary of State's office and other who work really hard to make sure that we stay there. And I just want to remind the committee, we were #1 2 years running in election integrity. And that's because of the hard work of Mr. Goins, Secretary of State Hargett, and a lot of people. So I just want to remind everybody of that.
May I respond, Mr. Chair?
Yes, Representative.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. You know, commendations to Mr. Goins. This is not about election integrity. This is about ethics, which is a different department than the elections. This is about the ethics of elections, which is a different reporting agency than Mr. Goins and Secretary Hargett. And so, you know, this is about reining in the appearance of unethical behavior. And if we are so committed to integrity, then we should be okay with transparency. We should be okay with clear disclosure and clear prohibitions on people who are giving to politicians, not getting a quid pro quo and getting a contract in return. I mean, this is basic common sense. And it's something that, you know, will restore trust. It's a step toward restoring trust with our voters. Again, I think I don't want people to take this personally that, you know, we feel like the body here is unethical or that there's some misconduct happening, but this is just to avoid the appearance of it. I keep stressing that. And I think it is so clear that if you talk to most voters, people think that money in elections is a corrupting influence. The amount of unproliferated, campaign contributions from corporations feels like it distorts the voices of the average citizen from your county to my county. And so this is about just empowering everyday Tennesseans, the 7 million people who we represent. We are not up here to represent folks who are corporate actors just giving us money. We're here to represent the people who voted us to be here. That's who we represent every day. And this is to assure voters that that's why we're here, and to get rid of this idea of pay to play politics. Again, this is about anti-corruption. This is about ethics. And this is about something that Tennessee can be on the forefront of in restoring trust to our government. So thank you for your question.
Thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none. We are voting on HB 2380. Excuse me, I'm on the wrong one. And we have a voice vote. Let me get back. Okay. We have a roll call, excuse me. We're on HB 2499 by Jones, and we are requested a roll call vote. Madam Secretary, please take the row. A yes means you're for the bill, a no means you are not.
Representative Burkhart. Representative Doggett. Representative Hilton Haynes. Representative Moon. Representative Warner.
No.
Chairman Crawford.
No.
Chairman Rudd.
No. Bill fails.
Thank you so much, committee, for the debate. Take care.
Next up is item number 6, HB 2382 by Chairman Crawford. We have a motion. We have a second on the bill. Do you have any amendments on the bill, Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chairman, may I present from the diocese?
You may.
All right, and I do have no amendments on the bill.
Tell us about your bill, sir.
Basically, this was brought to me by my election commissioner back home. Right now, they have to mail letters to the candidates to send a receipt in request. They also have other forms that they have to provide if you are a candidate. And all this bill does is make that, it changes and says, you shall by email or first class mail or by electronic. So that's all the bill does, is give them the capability if they want to use that. If they don't, they can stay as they are and use the first class mail. And there is a penalty to this. If it's violated after 5 days, it will accrue a $25 fine.
Any questions on the bill? Seeing none, we are voting on HB 2382 by Crawford. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Bill passes on to local full. Point of privilege to the chairman. I want to recognize Leadership Rutherford from my home county is in the room. Welcome to the most exciting committee in all of the Capitol. At this point, I'm going to pass the gavel to Chairman Crawford. Does he need this or is he? Okay.
Next on today's agenda, item number 7, House Bill 1799 by Chairman Rudd. Got a proper motion in second. I do see we have an amendment. Would you please give us your drafting code?
Let me get there, Mr. Chairman. I got 14991.
That is correct. Do you want us to place this on the bill for discussion?
Yes, thank
or
you.
individually? I do have a motion and a second on the amendment, so we'll be, without objection, we'll be voting on the amendment 14991 going on to House Bill 1799. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Bill is now amended. You're recognized on your bill, Chairman Rudd, as amended.
What this does, right now, when county election commissions and administrators are trained, it's not really clear. Right now, only the local election commission. The state election commission has the authority to intervene as they so choose, but they rarely do, if ever. And we wanted to make sure that the county election commissions are getting the proper training and the travel to conferences and make sure they're being approved the right way. So what this does is it grants the Secretary of State and the Coordinator of Elections the authority to approve that training and the travel to that training if they're traveling. And that way we can better regulate it. Right now, the Coordinator and the Secretary of State do not have that authority, and this would grant them that authority so we can better regulate what county commissions are. Our county election commissions are doing and how they're being trained and where they're going. And that's the bill, Mr. Chairman.
You've heard the explanation of the sponsor. Are there any questions for the sponsor? We have one question. Representative Warner, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Thank you, sponsor. I got a couple statements here I want to read and a couple questions, and I'm in favor of the bill, but I just want to make a couple statements here for the record. I'm glad to see this bill, which will bring oversight, accountability to assure our election officials are not in any way partnering with groups that want to influence our Tennessee election officials and administration. As you know, Congress has conducted hearings and investigations, groups that have developed partnerships with federal agencies. Some of these groups have attacked free speech, partnered with government agencies. The source of funding has been investigated, and some even have been tied to foreign funding services. We know that Congress has addressed this in a new bill introduced called the ACE Act, American Confidence in Elections, to address the concerns of third-party federal overreach in our elections. 3 questions here, Mr. Chairman. Will this bill include oversight over the influence through trainings, associations, contracts with third parties?
Chairman Rudd.
Yeah, what the bill does, it says right here in the bill, it says the county election commission member, administrator of elections, and any employee of the county election commission must receive approval from the Secretary of State prior to attending any training, seminar, conference, or any other educational event related to elections.
Representative Warner.
Again, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I also would like to give a shout out to Congressman Mark Green and Senator Bill Hagerty for the job that they've done on election integrity in Washington. Thank you.
Chairman Moon. Okay, Chairman Doggett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. These sponsor these trainings, does that include webinars and Zoom calls in that, or just the in-person training?
Chairman Rudd.
The way it's worded, it would include any and all their training if it's about elections.
Chairman Doggett for follow-up.
Thank
He's
you.
good. Chairman Moon. Any other questions for the sponsor? Question has been called on the bill. It's non-debatable. All those in favor of passing House Bill 1799 as amended on to local government full, please say aye. Opposed, no. Bill moves on to local full. Item number 8 on today's agenda, House Bill 1955 by Chairman Rudd. Got a proper motion and second. Any discussion? Without objection?
I request, we're going to make some slight modifications to this, and I request to roll that 1 week.
Without objection, this bill will be rolled 1 week. I'm not going to pass the gavel off you the power. Are there any members that have,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have Patrick Wade with us today, and he is one of the top TCAP presidents in the whole TBR. Thank you for being with us.
There's tied up here, isn't it? The chair.